The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count, the college football show, where when it's time to fire your head coach, just fire the guy already. Every job's opening up. Might as well be yours. Glad to have y'all here. It is October 28th, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. It's a Tuesday, meaning we got game picks galore for you. In addition to that, though, we got to tackle a little Lane Kiffin later in the show. If you were Lane Kiffin and you had your smorgasbord of options, from assuming it's going to be Florida in there for him, LSU, throw your hat in the ring for the guy. Oh, by the way, you can stay at Ole Miss. You're going to be a playoff team by the looks of it. What would you do? We'll talk about that in a matter of moments, but let's start with the BetMGM game of the week. Knoxville, Tennessee, Neyland Stadium, dark mode activated for the Vols. Oklahoma is a 3.5-point dog rolling into this one. 7:30 Eastern, ABC, playoff elimination game status for both sides of this. Both Oklahoma and Tennessee with 2 losses. For Tennessee, don't look now, but if you win this game, staring down the barrel of New Mexico State, going to Florida now, which you haven't won at Florida since Bush was president, but it is what it is, and Vanderbilt. For Tennessee, if you got that killer instinct, man, all bets are off. It is all right there in front of you. You got to get past Oklahoma, but if you get past Oklahoma and that defense, I don't think there's a tougher task ahead of you, defensively speaking, than this game right here. So we're about to find out a lot about the championship medal of a one Tennessee volunteer football program. Now, Oklahoma, it's all about steadying yourself. You took a punch, right? You took a punch from Lane Kiffin and co. at your place. Not good vibes. But here's the thing. Champions, they don't stay down. They get back up. You'd like to think they get right in this spot, don't you? I understand we had the whole deal with John Mateer's hand and Dr. Shin's in there doing surgery and getting my boy right, putting hardware in his throwing hand. This is the spot where there's going to be some throws downfield available to you. Oklahoma, this Tennessee secondary is giving up 281 a game, dude. 281 a game. If there was ever a get-right spot, this is the spot. Now, a big question we had going into last week was, can Oklahoma find a way to run the football? I don't need you to have the running game be something that you just lean on and just say we're going to go for 200 a game here. This is how we win the game, by running the freaking football, become a 4 yards in a cloud of dust football team. I don't think that's who you become, but I need something you can depend on. Because if I can just have Tennessee honor the run game a little bit here, I told you, there's plays downfield already. Think about how much more wide open those windows are when that safety has to think about tackling a big Xavier Robinson. Xavier Robinson was a baller last week for you, over 100 yards. I think he's the guy that you got to roll with here. If you're Ben Arbuckle and company on the offensive side for the Sooners, he runs behind his pads. He gets north and south. He's just reminds me of a small truck getting downhill at you. That's the kind of energy I need from Oklahoma in the run game. I don't need you, again, to have this massive day on the ground and we just make Tennessee bend to our will. Tennessee, as a defense overall, pretty good against the run, by the numbers at least. Couple of games, though, that make you raise an eyebrow. Kentucky, not awesome defending the run. Mississippi State. They got right against them, defending the run. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But that's one of those situations where I need to see something from Oklahoma on the ground, because that's only going to elevate a one John Mateer. And in this game, you're going to have to score points. You say, JD, our defense is awesome. I know your defense is awesome. I totally hear that. I understand that. I respect that. But listen, Tennessee's going to score. Death, taxes, and Joey Aguilar throwing for 300-plus yards. It's the way that this whole thing works, man. And Josh Heupel is going to develop a script that is a thing of beauty here to start the game off. I'm talking Hallmark Christmas card good looking. It's going to be something to behold. And if I'm Tennessee, I'm watching that Ole Miss game and I'm rubbing my hands together. All right? What's his name? Spice Adams? Spice Adams? The Spice Adams meme is what we're doing here, watching Ole Miss with what they did last week. Ball is out quick. Now, I understand what Tennessee would like to do is run the football and then have some of that quick game and then work up to the deep shot plays downfield. That's all well and good. Those deep shot plays will have to develop a little bit quicker because this Oklahoma outfit gets to the freaking quarterback with bad intentions. Our Mason Thomas is a problem off the edge. I don't love having the whole 3-step and a hitch up for Joey Aguilar because by that second step, Mason Thomas might be in your living room. Food for thought. But there's going to be a lot of catch, rock, throw, take advantage of space, take advantage of these wide splits. And we said this with Oklahoma last week, and it ended up being kind of the thing that killed them. Pressure is awesome as long as you get home. If you don't get home or you don't tackle well in space, guess what? There's a ton of green grass for the ball carrier to work with. And Tennessee's got a lot of guys that I think would probably start for Ole Miss tomorrow when it comes to the perimeter. Chris Brazzell being the number one guy for Tennessee, guy that's going to give you problems. The common denominator for problems for Oklahoma, defensively speaking, in terms of the opponents they've played, has been great play callers, great offensive minds. Like, think about Steve Sarkisian in Red River. Got him. Lane Kiffin last week. Got him. Josh Heupel, to me, is up there in that trio of some of the best play callers in the sport offensively. That makes me nervous for Oklahoma. So I think Oklahoma's defense is still really good. They got to be opportunistic here. If you can turn Joey Aguilar over a little bit here, give Mateer some extra possessions, I like that world you could live in there if you're Oklahoma. Quiet the crowd down a little bit. That would be a good way to live. John Mateer still doesn't look right to me, just to keep it a buck. Now, I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what's going on in-house in Norman, so make that very clear. But I'm watching the guy play ball. He doesn't look like he's playing with that same level of reckless abandonment that made him a Heisman frontrunner early on in the season. And you know what I'm saying. I'm talking off-script Johnny Mateer. I'm talking throw my body around John Mateer. I'm talking we're looking to truck DBs. He's still playing with that same intensity, but you can tell he doesn't look quite as sure of himself. And I don't think it's a thing upstairs for him. I think it's he's not 100% sure what his body can take at this point in time relative to that injury. So that's something that I'm thinking about as I break this game down. If we get reckless John Mateer, if we get no more governor John Mateer on the overall approach for him, I think Oklahoma has every avenue to win this football game. Preseason, I was enormously high on Oklahoma. This season, I'm still very high on Oklahoma. I picked them to beat Ole Miss a week ago, and it went how it went, but I don't think that Oklahoma, as an overall outfit, is anything less than what we thought they were going to be going into the year. And I do think Xavier Robinson is going to find a way to get something going on the ground. I think Oklahoma actually scores in this game. With that being said, the problem with Tennessee is they're going to score at a pretty consistent clip. And if you want to beat Tennessee, you got to pack a lunch, pack a hard hat, get those like gross gels that runners eat when they go on marathon. It's going to be that kind of vibe for you. You got to have some stamina to you offensively. And the thing with Oklahoma is if they're going to win this game, it's going to take something against a Power 4 football team that we haven't seen yet to this point in the season. Oklahoma, the most points they've scored against a Power 4 team is 26. Okay? So if 26 is the number to beat it for Tennessee, Oklahoma's great offensively, but I don't feel great about Oklahoma holding them to less than that number, especially with it being in Neyland, with the black jerseys. All those things make me a little bit on edge. So Joey Aguilar, you play clean, you win the football game. You play on time, you win the football game. I think Oklahoma has a good day offensively. I think Tennessee has a better day offensively. Final score, 34-27. Vols win. Vols cover in Neyland. And don't look now, there was all this discussion about Nico Iamaleava leaving Tennessee, and can Tennessee just win 8 games? That'd be a good year. You're staring down the barrel of a college football playoff berth with 3 games left in the season. So Tennessee wins, they protect home field advantage, they cover, they keep their playoff hopes very much so intact. You know who else's playoff hopes intact right now? Freaking Vanderbilt Commodores. Right here in our backyard. They're not playing in our backyard this weekend. They're going to Austin, Texas. Texas favored by 2.5 at the crib. Interesting. Now, why is that? A little Brian Windhorst action. We'll break it down. Noon Eastern, ABC. For Texas, you just had 2 exhausting wins. Imagine us saying that in the context of this season, and we're saying this like, I'll rewind a little bit here. Imagine me telling you Texas had back-to-back exhausting wins. Say, Jody, who were they against? Was it the Oklahoma and Florida game? No, it was against Kentucky and Mississippi State. We're talking about this. We're looking to the future SEC Media Days. Kentucky and Mississippi State both go to overtime, and just wild times in 2025 when it comes to college football. Where's the stamina at here for Texas? because I think the way that you got those wins could do two different things for you. One, they could be just what I said, exhausting, emotionally, we're out of gas. Physically, now we got to go match up with a Vanderbilt football team that's going to run the ball, that's going to play physical on the defensive side. Are we out of gas, or does that sort of propel us here, where we say, you know what, we kind of let it rip in that fourth quarter and overtime period against Mississippi State. We took all the pressure off ourselves. We started just playing a little bit more free, and that made the difference. Maybe the light bulb turns on here for Texas. We'll see, because it better be on when you're playing Vanderbilt. That's a one-loss team coming to your place with Diego Pavia supplying the juice, running the show. They got real belief out there at Vanderbilt, and I loved this so much for them at the end of the game against Missouri. Massive win. I think you could argue it was as big a win as that team has had outside of the Alabama win in modern history for Vanderbilt. Quite frankly, game days there. There was actually a home field advantage for Vanderbilt there. It felt like watching the broadcast. But there was no extracurriculars when it came to rushing the field or anyone getting emotional because they won the football game. Like Vanderbilt was like, no, we were favored in that game at home. We won that game. On to the next. Vanderbilt's for real. They got a seat at the table. Their college football playoff discussion is very real for the Commodores. However, now you take the show on the road, and the spotlight on this game isn't as bright as the last couple that you've had. LSU coming to your place. It's no extra juice to get dialed up for at that point in time, a one-loss LSU team. Okay, you don't have to get dialed up when you got College Game Day in town and a one-loss Missouri team, but now you're going to Texas, 11 a.m. local kick, little road trip action. You're not the game of the week anymore. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think Vanderbilt will actually have not a bad time running the football, just a little bit spotty. Okay, there was couple of things in that Missouri game that made me raise an eyebrow. Vanderbilt ran for 136 yards on the ground. That's a good day at the office, right? Great day at the office. A lot of teams would give their left arm and their special teams unit to have 136 yards on the ground. However, Vanderbilt hit 80 of those 136 on one play. So you don't apologize for having explosives, but I do think when you actually go back and watch that game, you say, okay, Missouri, maybe they exposed something here. Now, Texas doesn't have the combo of Damon Wilson and Zion Young, but guess what? They got Colin Simmons, who you could argue is as good as either of those players. I think the Texas rush defense here is something to watch. They are top 3 in America when it comes to stopping the run. Now, the way that Texas has stopped the run to this point in the year is going to be different than what Vanderbilt presents. Vanderbilt, if you've watched them over the course of this season, you know they got the RPO stuff working. It's the modern triple option stuff working. It's the quarterback designed run game with Diego Pavia. My question is, at what point in the game, if at all, does Vanderbilt get their game going when it comes to messing with the read defenders of Texas? Because that's kind of the game within the game whenever you're running an option offense. At a certain point in time, those edge defenders or those read defenders that have to go out and tackle the running back, you start to guess a little bit when you have it happen over and over to you where the quarterback gives it. You start to be a little bit extra aggressive. And then at that point in time, Pavia pulls it. He's out the back door. And the edge defender, the read defender's like, oh, shoot, okay, well, I gotta be a little bit on my P's and Q's here. Okay, so if you're guessing as the edge defender instead of just playing ball and you're in your own head, you've already lost. Because what that creates is hesitation. Hesitation against Vanderbilt is losing football. So the way that would happen for Vanderbilt is you start to gash them a little bit early. I'm talking like 4 yards, 5 yards here. Bam, pop a 12-yarder. Bam, pop a 25-yarder. If you can get something like that going in the read option game and the RPO game, that's where Vanderbilt really starts to roll. It's a momentum kind of offense with what they're doing out there with Diego Pavia. Now for Texas offensively, at this point in time of us recording this show, I don't have any intel on what's going on with Arch Manning. Sounds like he was in concussion protocol at the end of the game against Mississippi State. Here's what I'll say. Matthew Caldwell stepped into that game for Texas and threw a freaking dot to win the game, drop it in a bucket to Mosley, and ended up being the game winner. I also have seen one other throw from Matthew Caldwell at this point in the year where he delivered a dime against Florida. So I'm just saying the sample size on Caldwell is small, but it is, I don't know, you're playing quarterback University of Texas. You can't be all that bad, just to put it simply there. There's going to be some plays, I think, for Texas to beat the pressure of this Vanderbilt defense. Quick hitters, screen game, perimeter run game. I think Steve Sarkisian is going to have a game plan dialed up for this Steve Gregory aggressive Vanderbilt defense. Missouri ran for $170 against them. Now, Missouri also has arguably the best running back in college football in Ahmad Hardy, so I don't think that blueprint is copy and paste. But I think the personnel of Texas is still good enough, and the game plan that Steve Sarkisian is going to bring to the table here is still good enough to attack the weaker points of this Vandy defense. I say weak point. It's not a weak defense. There's just always some areas of a defense to attack and maybe have strained whenever you're bringing the pressure that Vanderbilt likes to bring. So that's something to watch there. Now, we have to say this. Ryan Niblett's going to make something happen in this game. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what the overall game script reads like there. But after Oklahoma, I sat here and looked into the barrel of this camera and said, listen, I think Texas, what you do with that punt return to win the game, that was nice. You can't bank on that, though. It's not a way you can live life here consistently. And in the last 2 weeks, Texas has lived life consistently with Ryan Niblett making plays in the return game. Ran back a punt against Mississippi State to force overtime, and he ran back 2 punts against Kentucky to flip the field, not for touchdowns, but flip the field and allow Texas to be in position to push that game to where they pushed it to. So what does he do in this game? I don't know, but I just have to give you the analysis. Ryan Niblett is going to do something in this game. How's that for analysis? Punt returner there for Texas. Now, in the same way I talk about Ryan Niblett doing something cool, Diego Pavia is going to do something cool in this game too. He is. Like, you go ahead and watch him against Missouri. He had that touchdown that got called back. He is so shifty and so sudden with the way that he runs the football. I don't think we talk about that nearly enough. The easy take on Diego Pavia is he's a dog. He brings the energy. He's gritty. He's all those things. He's a really freaking good athlete. He makes guys miss in space. He picks up the extra yards on contact. Like, he's one of those guys that is so crafty with the football in his hands. I'm curious to see what the efficacy is of a Diego Pavia in this spot when the play breaks down. Because, I think he's going to get his to some respect, but we said the same thing for other quarterbacks on the previous prediction show, speaking of Taylor Green in the Auburn game. Like, when you say he's going to get his in the stat sheet, does that mean Diego Pavia has, call it 50 to 70 yards rushing, and a lot of those come on broken plays, scrambling out of bounds on 3rd and long, and you're punting the football away? Or is it, no, he's beating your pressure when you brought a guy off the edge in Colin Simmons, or you brought a DB from depth. He sees that. He gets underneath it. He's out the front door for 30, 40 yards and a touchdown, and Vanderbilt's already putting pressure on you at your place to go match it. Potentially here, if Arch isn't healthy, with a backup quarterback. Now, even if Arch is healthy, I don't know if you have like a ton of confidence in what Texas has been offensively this year. Neither here nor there. But just something to keep a pulse on. What's the effectiveness of Diego Pavia off script here? Shout out Zach Herbstreit in the Off Script YouTube channel. Make sure you're also subscribed to that. The spot matters here. The spot matters here. I said that before, but I'll say it again when it comes to Texas and their 2 exhausting wins against Kentucky, against Mississippi State. Like, it's been a little bit of a, I have to say, like, angsty last couple of weeks for Texas emotionally. For Vanderbilt, the spot for them is what we said at the top too. You just had one of the biggest wins in program history with game day in town. You beat Missouri. It was awesome. But now you're on the road. It's an earlier kick. How do you handle not having the spotlight shine quite as bright on you? I think we have potentially here, it's wild to say for Vanderbilt, the first letdown spot maybe of the Clark Lee era. I guess you could say the win over Alabama, and then what they had after that was a letdown spot, but neither here nor there. You hear what I'm saying? Who's able to reset? Who has the most urgency? Vanderbilt, you already have one loss on the season, but I think that Texas is actually the more desperate team in this game. I don't think Texas fears Vanderbilt, and that's not me disrespecting Vanderbilt. I just think that's probably the way you feel internally if you're Texas. You still look at that other logo and say, no, we recruit better players. We think we have as good a plan as anyone to go beat this team. I think that we have the right speed on defense to go beat this team and take care of that quarterback. We'll see if that's the case. But I do think that at a certain point here, the personnel for Texas will eventually make the difference at home with the back against the wall for Texas. I think that the tough wins they've had create more urgency and more confidence than complacency. I keep picking against Vanderbilt, dude, and I keep being wrong. It feels too late to switch sides right now, so your boy's going to roll with Texas. I think it's close. I think it's low scoring. Final score, Texas wins. Texas covers 20-17 is what the clock says, or what the scoreboard says in 000s in Austin. We'll take Texas to win and cover that one at the crib. So at that point now you got 2-loss Vandy, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way for the Commodores, but they still have everything they want in front of them, even with 2 losses. Now, we already gave you our BetMGM game of the week. This is a game, though, that needs to be tracked because
this was in contention for game of the week for us. USC going to Nebraska. USC, a road favorite. 6 points is what they opened up at. 7:30 Eastern, NBC. It's a playoff elimination game kind of week. And this game is no exception. Both teams with 2 losses. If Nebraska wins this game, schedule is pretty workable for them the rest of the way. USC still has to play Oregon, but Nebraska, Penn State doesn't look like Penn State. Before the year that you thought you were going to get there. You play Iowa, but I think you feel like that game's pretty winnable. We'll see. It's a chance for you if you're Nebraska, though, to kind of break through. Because we've been saying here for the better part of the last couple of years, this is the year where Nebraska kind of bosses up a little bit and plays to their potential of their personnel. Now you got the quarterback there in Rhule in his second year in the system. I guess second true year in the system, I should say. For USC, are you mentally tough enough to handle what happened before your bye week? Take that bye week, let it digest, let it process, and then go play your best football on the road, understanding that if you lose another game, your playoff hopes are gone? That's my question for them, because I think we talk about the physical toughness for USC, and that's totally fair to discuss. It's a question I'm going to have in this game as well for the Trojans, but the mental toughness is also something you have to account for. Who are you after a loss, after a full week to think about it, and now you're on the road in a place to play in Lincoln where they're going to be turned up for that one. There's no way around that with it being in that game as well. I give a slight edge to USC in the battle on the perimeter when the football's in the air. USC, I think, is going to swing their sword a little bit here when it comes to pushing the ball downfield. If you haven't watched Mekhi Lemon play football, now is the time, dude. This is going to be a great defense for Nebraska in the secondary. They're one of the best in the country when it comes to what they're doing against the pass, by the numbers that is. But Mekhi Lemon plus Jacoby Lane, the man coverage of Nebraska, whenever they choose to do that, I think there's going to be a good amount of cut it loose here for Jaden Maiava. That's what I'm thinking, at least. Whenever I see number 8 with single coverage or number 6 with single coverage, that's something to watch for in this game. I think they're going to take their swings pretty early on, and I think they're going to hit on a couple of those. I also think that there's going to be a good amount of the screen game working here for USC. It was a straight-up clinic for USC in the screen game against Michigan. They were really effective in doing that, less effective in doing that against Notre Dame. But I'm watching what Northwestern did in Nebraska, and they took advantage of the screen game a few times. I think that's something that USC will lean on here pretty heavily. So, to put it simply, I think USC scores points. I do, and that's not a surprise. They've scored 42 a game. But if you're Nebraska, what's your answer on the offensive side? I think Nebraska can run the football here. And that's kind of the thing that I'd look at here most closely if I'm a Husker fan. Notre Dame ran the football for like 300 yards against USC. Jeremiah Love had over 200 yards on the ground. What is the physicality for USC in this spot? And then what is the discipline here for USC in this spot? Because Emmett Johnson for Nebraska gets downhill with bad intentions, and Dana Holgorsen, the OC for Nebraska, does a great job being creative in it. Emmett Johnson had 27 carries against Northwestern. I think that's kind of the number you look at being maybe not the magic number for Nebraska when it comes to running the football, but closer to that number. It's got to be over 22 carries for Emmett Johnson is my point here. I want to make sure that USC is shored up enough on the ground before I do anything else if I'm Nebraska offensively. I understand Rhyola's got to go get it. We got to push the ball downfield. All that is true. But I am testing the USC front seven early and somewhat often here if I'm Nebraska. They do a great job, does Nebraska. I mentioned being creative, but also being pretty downhill with how they run the football. Like a lot of inside-outside zone for the Huskers. Emmett Johnson feels that extremely well, and the push that Nebraska got against Northwestern I thought was incredibly impressive. How much of that exists in this spot? Because I just told you, I think the passing game for USC, as good as that Nebraska secondary is, I don't think they've seen anything the likes of what USC is going to bring to the table here. But guess what? It might not matter if Nebraska's holding the football for the better part of these 4 quarters. Like Jaden Maiava in that passing game, it makes me nervous, but only as nervous as them being on the field. If I'm Nebraska, I say, okay, cool, we're on the football. We'll take our 4 or 5 yards of carry where we can get it. And if that's the way we're living, we'll just hold the football. We'll just possess the football at our place, put the pressure on your defense to stop us throughout the duration of our these hopefully double-digit play drive for us here for Nebraska. If we can live that way, your advantage, if you're USC, to me becomes massively minimized. Do you get to play that way? We'll see. Now, I also think that USC scoring points in this spot is going to, at some level, require something of Dylan Rhule. And if you're Dylan Rhule, this is why you came to Nebraska, to get in games like this against offenses like that and go match them. Like USC scoring 42 a game, maybe they don't get 42 here. But if they get, call it 27, can you go answer the call to action there? Can you and your receiving core go answer the call to action there is maybe the better question. USC's defense has been pretty opportunistic this year. You can't surrender possessions here if you're Nebraska. Like, you can't give it away twice and expect to win the football game. That's something that makes me a touch nervous in this spot for Rhule and for Nebraska. They need to play a really clean game, which you got to play clean in any football game and feel good about your chances to win that way. You can't turn it over multiple times and expect to win the football game. But I think for USC especially, if you're giving extra possessions to Maiava and Lincoln Riley, if Minnesota's scoring against Nebraska, what's USC going to do here? I understand Nebraska, you would hope, is playing a different level of inspired and urgent, but I'm just saying that formula cannot exist here for Nebraska. And it makes me a touch nervous if it does. Now, in the same vein here, the quarterback question I have for USC is, Jaden Maiava, you've been good this year when it comes to protecting the football. Only 4 interceptions, but here's the bad news for USC fans. Those 4 interceptions, they've came in the last 3 games for USC. 2 of those against Notre Dame. And again, the Nebraska secondary, I think personnel-wise, USC matches up well, but you're 1 or 2 errant throws from Maiava away from this being a situation where you got to watch Nebraska drive the football. Your D-line's out there for a longer period of time, and that's the big thing. Limiting the overall strain on your defense in that front 7 and how many plays they have to play is going to be determined by how careful Jaden Maiava is able to be with the football. And his football personality is a little bit more gunslinger-ish, which I love, and I think you need that in this USC offense. But if you get a little bit too outside the lines with what you do structurally for USC and push the football downfield, you're a little bit too casual with the ball, that's how you lose this game. Crowd gets into it, Nebraska run game leans on you, and even if USC is good against the run early, I don't like the idea of them being there in the fourth quarter with double the snaps what the offense has had to play. So that's something to keep an eye on and something to watch for Jaden Maiava and how casual he is with the football. I break all that down, and I say all that, but I think a lot of these things overall are pretty even in this game. Like, I like USC in the passing game against Nebraska, but I don't think it's like this decisive advantage. I think it's an advantage, but is it decisive? I don't know. I like Nebraska in the run game. I think that's an advantage for Nebraska. Is it definitive to the point where they're running for 300 yards like Notre Dame was? I don't know if it's quite that much. So I break all this down. I think it's a pretty good wash for the most part across the board here. So I say all that, and then I go back to this. Who do I trust more at quarterback right now? Quarterback, play caller, who do I trust more right now? Yes, it's on the road, but I still think it's Lincoln Riley. I still think it's Jaden Maiava. I even think, too, the spot for both these teams, Nebraska didn't look that great against Northwestern. Looked even worse against Minnesota with the way they lost that football game. USC beating Michigan a couple of weeks ago, and then the way they looked against Notre Dame. If that game isn't a gross weather game, I'm not sure that USC doesn't make that game a bit closer. I've been more impressed by the trend of USC and them knocking on the door of that win against Notre Dame than I was with Nebraska knocking on the door for a loss against Northwestern. So I'll take USC to win in this game. I'll take them to cover that number. I think final score is USC 31, Nebraska 24. So USC favored by 6. I think they cover that number by a point and win by 7. USC now, I understand the path ahead is not easy. You still got to play Oregon, but I don't know. 2 losses in the month of November right now. USC, their playoff hopes are intact. So USC wins, USC covers, and they get another Big Ten victory under their belt for Lincoln Riley and company. So USC's head coach is Lincoln Riley. It wasn't all that long ago now that USC's head coach was Lane Kiffin. You know how the story goes. Fired on the tarmac. We're talking about what Lane Kiffin is as a head coach in the context of college football and what's his future there. And ever since that moment, Lane Kiffin has been slowly but surely and steadily trending upwards to the point now where Lane Kiffin's got Ole Miss in a position to go make the college football playoff. And not just that, Lane Kiffin is the belle of the ball when it comes to the coaching carousel. LSU, that job just became available with the firing of Brian Kelly. Florida, that job became available with the firing of Billy Napier. And at the top of the list, you have to think for LSU and Florida, outside of hiring Marcus Freeman, I think Lane Kiffin is the number one suspect to fill both those jobs. Now, the question is, if you're Lane Kiffin, do you leave Ole Miss? We'll break it down right now. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. College football, nothing but college football. We will track both the openings for LSU and Florida. And if Ole Miss becomes available for Lane Kiffin leaving, we'll have thoughts on that as well. But I want to ask this question together, and we'll get Cato's thoughts on this as well throughout the course of this segment. What would you do if you're Lane Kiffin, assuming you have the pick of the Florida job, the LSU job, and the Ole Miss job? So we'll bring that man in right now. Hey, if you card once, you're going to want to card again. That's what my guy's rocking today. Producer of the Hard Count, Caden Smith. Cato, boy, you look good. You look real good, man. I'm just going to say it.
It's fall. We don't apologize for it, and happy to be playing the role of Lane Kiffin today as we make our decision as Lane's disciples. We try to be his conciliaries here.
Dude, does anybody have it better than him right now?
I mean, he's belle of the ball is almost an understatement. I think we should use like the lane of the pack, the lane of the group. We need to find a laneism to use going forward, because I think this is even bigger than being the belle of the ball. And there's still probably some more coaching jobs out there that'll open up that could even be more intriguing than these. You never know. He's
going to be so rich.
Yeah.
He's going to get so paid, dude.
One way or another, whether he takes any of these jobs or stays at Ole Miss and leverages it, he'll be the offseason breadwinner, I think, regardless, right?
Yeah, he has to. I mean, I don't even want to know how many zeros are going to be in that bank account by the end of this thing. It's going to be he's going to be so rich. So that's out there for just the certainty of it all. We know he's going to get paid. But what job is he going to have, Caden? That's the question I want to answer right now. I want to go LSU, Florida, and Ole Miss and just kind of unpack all three of those potential options, assuming there's not a fourth option out there where there's a world, I'm sure, where Penn State takes a swing at Lane Kiffin. I don't know what world that is, but we'll unpack it if that becomes more and more likely. But with these three options, let's just go job by job, starting with LSU. I think for LSU, you don't have to project anything. You look at the last couple of coaches you've had outside of Brian Kelly, they've all won national titles. Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron. And if I'm Lane Kiffin, you're the team in the state being Louisiana. There's a lot of talent in that state, and there's a track record for success plus the resources for success. And I understand there's a bit of a thought around, well, they didn't really get serious until Bryce Underwood decommitted. That happened a year ago now. Like, there's a resource pool to be drawn from for LSU. I think structurally they're set up for a lot of success. LSU, I think, is the number one job available here. I think it's more inches than feet relative to the Florida job, but it's set up for success. The GM, Austin Thomas, is awesome at his job. You got great commitment from the athletic director there. If you're LSU and you are able to grab Lane Kiffin, like, I don't want to speak too certainly because it's college football in 2025 and it'll be a 2026 season. It's going to be madness. But like, it feels like it's everything that you need for Lane Kiffin to go win a national title. That defense, maybe Blake Baker stays there if you want to keep him around. I think they'd be a wagon. Lane Kiffin at LSU would be a home run, and you don't need to project anything if you end up taking that job to see him win a national championship.
Yeah, and I think LSU is the runaway favorite as far as the best cuisine out of all of these options. So if Lane, I know he does the hot yoga. I know he's taking good care of his body, but if he wants to just fully heel turn and go to eating a bunch of Cajun food, I think that's the best option there for sure. I think LSU and Lane is like sneakily a really good fit too. I mean, you talk about being the premier team in a state where it's literally LSU is cared about and coveted more than the professional teams. And I think the buy-in and the care factor and a little bit of the craziness from the fans and the culture there, I think it would weirdly be like almost a better fit than Florida for me for some reason from just a fan base perspective and him wanting to live up to those expectations, the very high expectations that fan base has. You mentioned the recruiting pool, that's huge. And if you just think like if you close your eyes and think about the wide receivers that have come through LSU, and then you now think about them in a Lane Kiffin offense, like the horsepower of that offense would be unbelievable, and he's familiar with that specific region too. I mean, Mississippi's not too far from LSU, so I think even that region and recruiting in there would be great. With all of these, it's the same mantra. This is a guy who has gotten some of the best players year in and year out in the transfer portal to come to Ole Miss. LSU might be the best sell out of all of these as far as getting a player from the portal to come over and be successful. I mean, they've had that track record at the quarterback position now for a couple years with a couple Heisman winners. Same with some other players across the board. But, I mean, this, from what I've heard, this is the best like financially backed kind of operation out of all the options so far. Apparently LSU has a little bit more resources in the NIL department than some of these other schools. So that's obviously a big time a big time want and a big time desire for all head coaches. But man, it's LSU football, man. You don't have to sell it too much. Many people think this is the runaway favorite out of the entire market of jobs now that exist that want a new head coach. So it'll be interesting to see what Lane prefers here. But you definitely can't go wrong with the Tigers, I think.
And here's my thing, too. I think the way that Brian Kelly didn't embrace Louisiana or LSU quite as much, Lane Kiffin's personality maybe doesn't suggest that he's like, the most warm and fuzzy guy in the world, which is totally fine. But I think that if he goes to a place like LSU, he's going to wrap his arms around everything that LSU is. Like, I think he's done that at every stop he's been at, from what I can gather. Like, Ole Miss, he talked a little bit about when he first got that job, the pace of life is a bit slower. He's trying to figure out Oxford. And then, like, a few years into it, he's like, I love it here. This place is awesome. Like, I get it. I get their pace of life. I understand what Mississippi's about. And I think if he ended up in Louisiana, he would do that. Like, Brian Kelly, it was never a matter of LSU embracing Brian Kelly. When he got there, they're like, you're going to win us football games? Cool, we're in. And then Brian Kelly doesn't really wrap his arms around Louisiana, and that thing just got a little bit weird. So I don't think, to put a finer point on this, I don't think you run into the same problem of a head coach embracing a place like you did with Brian Kelly. Also, Brian Kelly wasn't from the SEC. And I don't want to overemphasize the idea that, like, you have to be a culture fit to fit at LSU, but I do think you have to embrace LSU, and I think that if you're not embracing LSU, it speeds up the process of things not working out well. Now, I thought, full transparency, early on, I thought, hey, he's going to win. Cool. Like, he's going to be a fit in Baton Rouge, and that ended up not being the case. But LSU would make a lot of sense for all the reasons we just mentioned there, Cato. How about Florida? A lot of ingredients there. Do you want to spit a little bit here on Florida? Just your thoughts as it pertains to Kiffin maybe being a fit there or being a guy that ends up out there in Gainesville?
Yeah, I think, like I said, like, he'd be a great fit for LSU. Personally, I think he'd be a great fit for Florida. But I think Florida, out of all of these schools, Lane Kiffin has what they're looking for the most. So I'm curious, as far as all of these teams throwing the kitchen sink at him, I think Florida will probably try to throw the entire kitchen, the entire house, whatever they need to, because I think he fits what they're looking for the most. You mentioned before an offensive head coach. This is what Florida needs right now, is an offensive-minded head coach. And right now he's proving to be one of, if not the best, play callers in the country. You mentioned what he does in the portal and recruiting. Having Florida to your backyard, a state that is always 1, 2, or 3 when it comes to talent, year in and year out at the high school level, it's major. This is a guy who's the portal king, but if he could parlay that with keeping kids in the state of Florida at the high school level in his backyard and putting them in his offensive scheme, I mean, it'd be huge. And you talk about the players even on their roster right now. If we're talking about short term, Florida, if you get a DJ Lagway to stay, you get a Jaden Baugh to stay, you get a Dallas Wilson, it's like, their roster is already loaded and they're not hitting that potential. I think short term Lane Kiffin would get them hitting their stride immediately, even though some people might think in Ole Miss, obviously he's already established there, and LSU, they seem pretty ready to win right now. I think they could plug Lane Kiffin in right now, what they got going on, and they would see the benefits from it immediately. So I think he fits a lot what they're looking for. Andy Staples has said they want a fiery head coach that wears a visor. He obviously fits that. He fits the offensive side of things. He is coached in the state of Florida previously in his career, so he has some ties there. The state of Florida speaks for itself, and I think we mentioned it before in our pre-show meeting. LSU, if you go to an LSU, you are the premier school in that state. A little bit more of a competition in Florida with Miami and Florida State, but I think if he shows up, he's immediately the best offensive mind in this state, and that alone is a recruiting tool I think would be huge for him. I mean, you can go play for Miami, you could play for Florida State, but I have guys in the league playing on Sundays at quarterback. We have 3 Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback at Florida. I think that fit offensively specifically, and him being kind of that guy in the state would just be huge for Florida, huge for the program. I think they want him more than any of these other programs.
In a weird way, I think Lane Kiffin would actually benefit from having Florida State and Miami around him, because he has proven if he has some ammo to troll somebody else, he uses that to then make his place look better. So you're telling me Lane Kiffin trolling Florida State wouldn't be something that boosts Florida?
Annually.
If he can troll Miami, if they end up being in that world, like, it's going to be a thing where, yeah, you got to compete for them with recruits, but in a weird way, I think Lane Kiffin takes situations like that and takes opponents like that and uses them to his advantage in his own Lane Kiffin kind of way. I can just close my eyes and see this more clearly, Cato, which isn't really an analysis so much, and maybe it's because this job's been open longer and this Lane Kiffin LSU idea has existed since Sunday night. But for whatever reason, I feel like the personality of Florida and just what you said, what they're looking for, and maybe in a weird way even what Lane Kiffin's looking for, it feels like it aligns more with a Florida. You talk about his affinity for a one Steve Spurrier and how he, I believe the way that ESPN phrased it was how he idolized Spurrier. I looked up to Spurrier when he was coming up the ranks. I think his wife has ties to the state of Florida. Him having coached in the state of Florida, there's a little bit more common denominator with Kiffin in Florida that makes sense to me. That's just how I feel about this. I think LSU is maybe a better job, a better situation, but that roster, if he can keep Dallas Wilson dial-up winners for him, if we got Trinidad Chambliss spinning it right now from the D2 ranks, I don't know if Lagway's his quarterback next year if he goes to Gainesville, just by nature of I don't know if Lagway's, this is maybe a touch disrespectful, I don't know if Lagway has played well enough at this point to like solidify himself as a starting quarterback next year if Kiffin comes in and wants to bring his own guy. Food for thought. It'd be a monster. It would be a monster. And maybe it's not the first year, but all the ingredients are there at Florida for him to win at the highest level. Like you can see it maybe more clearly at LSU because more guys have done it more recently. But again, we're not talking about something that's like this unscalable wall if you gave Kiffin the resources at Florida, that logo, the ability to recruit via the portal there, the high school. Like he would win at Florida, I guess is my point. He would win at the highest level at Florida, and that doesn't feel like it's reaching at all to say that.
Yeah, a couple. You said a lot of great things there. One, Lagway did say he's Florida through and through, so we'll see if he's a man of his word. We'll see if Lagway does it. But two, I love the idea of the mutualism that would kind of exist in the state of Florida if Elaine was there. Like, I think the rivalries would only go up and up because you have to think about it. When Lane goes to Ole Miss, he's kind of picking fights and like starting his own rivalries on Twitter, and because Ole Miss, like, they have the Egg Bowl at the end of the year, they have Magnolia Bowl, whatever you like, they have their old historic SEC rivalries. But he reignited a lot of those with some of the off the field chatter. I mean, Oklahoma this week, he's talking about Venables and the Signals. That's before the week. After, he's talking to David Stone after the game, coming right after Brian Kelly. What a funny turn of events, by the way.
Murdered him.
If Juice Kiffin's burner was already active in the SEC where Ole Miss is out here picking fights, imagine in-state we'd get annual posts for the Miami and Florida State game. It would be so good for college football. It'd be crazy to say this would be the best for college football if he went there, but I think just from a state of Florida in general, those schools all trying to come back and establish themselves as the top dog in the state, I think Lane would kind of make it all rise to the top, and it'd be great for the game. There was one other thing you said that I hung on to.
Dallas Wilson. Is what I can't get in my
that would be
closing my eyes and seeing Kiffin is, I guess, one thing I want to get your take on. It feels like it makes the most sense.
Yeah, it does, and I think that's what it was. It's really about what he wants. Like you watch the Lane Kiffin documentary, and this will probably go smoothly right into our Ole Miss transition here. It depends on what he wants because he has been all over the place, and it seemed at the end of that documentary he wanted to be at Ole Miss to kind of do his own thing and establish his own way. But, man, what a challenge, a fun and exciting challenge it would be to go to a place like Florida that seems like it's been a sleeping giant for a very long time and reactivate that. I mean, the only thing more impressive than that is if he just went on an unreal run with Ole Miss this year, went to the national championship, went to the SEC title game, won some games in the postseason. That would be an accomplishment within itself. And I almost think if he did achieve that, say he takes an SEC title back to Oxford, say he wins a couple playoff games, God forbid, wins a national championship. I mean, I think at that point you've accomplished everything you could at Ole Miss, and going off into the sunset at Florida might be a little bit easier to do.
Dude, the way you said this too about Brian Kelly, the way he was trolling Brian Kelly in the SEC, he obliterated Brian Kelly. I feel like more than once on social media, making fun of his TikToks and whatnot. Neither here nor there. But to your point of him creating rivalries, imagine Kiffin trolling Cristobal, and I don't know who the head coach of Florida State is going to be. Maybe it's James Franklin. Kiffin, Franklin, and Cristobal in the same state. Are you joking me? I think it'd be social media gold, but
would be insane.
That is what it is. Ole Miss, the current job for Lane Kiffin. I said it before. I don't know why you would leave Ole Miss. Now we'll both go to our if we were Lane Kiffin, here's what we would do take here in a second. But Andy Staples put out an article on Saturday after they beat Oklahoma, and you're like, okay, so Ole Miss is probably making the playoff. Okay, well, last year was supposed to be the year you didn't make the playoff, so this year's team is of a quote unquote lesser caliber talent-wise. and you're making the playoff, and you feel like you have a chance to go win a national title. If that's the ceiling, Florida's ceiling can only be as high as Ole Miss's. It can't be higher than winning a national championship. Same thing with LSU. Your ceiling can't be higher than winning a national championship. So if you're already doing that, why would you leave Ole Miss? The answer, I think a lot of people would say, is twofold. One, logo. JD, you walk into a high school, you have the LSU logo, that Florida logo. It probably has a little bit more juice to it than the Ole Miss logo, which maybe it's an opinion, but I think that's probably fair to say. Second part of that is resources. And this is where the conversation gets nuanced here, Cato. If I'm Lane Kiffin and I'm going to stay at Ole Miss, I tell the powers that be in Oxford, we are not doing window years here anymore. If I'm staying here and you believe, you being the people at Ole Miss, this job is as good as the jobs I'm turning down in LSU and Florida, you make sure I have everything that I need every single year. Not every other year, not every 3 years. We're never saying, oh, we're all in this year at Ole Miss. We are all in every year because I have proven if you give me what I need, I can get you to the college football playoff. I'm speaking a little bit there futuristically with what they're looking like they're going to do this year, but like it feels very much so teed up for that. So if I'm Kiffin, I am making my demands. I'm saying I want to be here. My daughter's here. I want to be here, but you got to make it worth my while because those places will give me all I need to go win. But he's embraced. He's empowered there. I appreciate that Ole Miss has embraced the Kiffin experience. He's tweeting how he wants to tweet, and Ole Miss is running with it. I think Ole Miss makes a lot of sense from that point of view. Why would you leave if you're Lane Kiffin? Why would you leave?
No, it's a great point, and I think you talk about the logos of the schools. Lane Kiffin is the logo for Ole Miss. Like Kurt Cignetti is the logo for Indiana. Like coaches have proven in this modern era, you can make the most of your situation and put your school on the map in no time. And Lane has been working at it for a while and has gotten to the point. He's putting several quarterbacks into the NFL. He's done it his own way, and he can continue to do it his own way at Ole Miss. But that has now also earned him the opportunity to do it his own way at programs that don't always have that. Like it's you can't do it your own way at LSU, like you mentioned. You have to kind of fit the mold of what they're looking for and please your fans both on and off the field. And I think Lane's now earned that right. But you mentioned it. I think he can squeeze everything out of Ole Miss possible. He's already done that, and I think he could double down by staying. I mean, this is a guy who we'll see how far he gets him into the playoff this year. We'll see what they do in the SEC title game. But after this, with all these suitors coming after him, you could sit down and have a really serious conversation with the higher-ups at Ole Miss about who they want to be and what they want to be. Because if he wants to stay at Ole Miss, he can definitely activate them in a way that they haven't before that can be even higher up than now. He's doing great in the portal. We know those guys aren't free. They're not just coming to Ole Miss on no kind of NIL money, but they can double down there. They could up their resources even more. Hit up Eli Manning, see what he's doing. What's A.J. Brown doing? They could really lean into this even more and keep riding this wave of success that Lane's had. And I keep referencing the documentary, but it's very clear he loves it there, loves his hot yoga routine, loves having his daughter there. He loves Ole Miss. They've embraced him. It'd be cool to see him embrace them back by saying no to all these really irresistible offers, if we're just being honest, that he's going to have as far as financially and the brand power of this. But, man, it'd be really cool for college football if he stayed. It'd be really cool if he went. But it's more about, I think, the heart wanting what it wants. And if I'd be interested to see kind of Ole Miss, how they finish the season, if that impacts at all. If there's any moments where we're like, okay, like, since they won this or since they lost that game, like that means he's staying at Ole Miss or that means he's probably going to go.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost making the Eli Drinkwitz angle a little bit more intriguing with Bo Prabula looks like he's going to miss some time. They just got their second loss. They lose another game.
Matt Rhule's name is in some of these rumors, and next thing you know, they're losing to Minnesota. Like, if he can keep his eye on the ball here, it could really make him him and this team really lock in even more on the task at hand, get more out of themselves. And he's like, man, I don't need to go. Like, I can, if we focus and try to block out noise to end this season and really have one of the better Ole Miss seasons we've had of all time, and I built it brick by brick by myself, doing it my own way, why would I start over somewhere else against teams that I'm going to beat? Like, they're about to play Florida, you know? Like, and that might be the interesting kind of sliding doors moment where we see it, because that'll just be an interesting environment. But yeah, man, it'd be cool if he stayed just because he built this by himself. But at the end of the Lane Kiffin documentary, I couldn't tell if he's just gonna go out in the sunset and be Ole Miss forever, go for the statue outside the stadium, or if there's more chapters to be attained here, and if he wants to get back to that spot where he does care if it's the Oakland Raiders or if it's USC, if it's Tennessee, he does care about those brands. I'm curious if he still has that kind of in him, because it seems like he's a little bit more detached from the brand names and being the young hotshot. He's just come such a long way.
If I'm Ole Miss, I'm saying, hey, Kiffin, whatever you need. I don't have any cash on me. That's just how I'm living right now. It's your boy's down bad. But if I'm Ole Miss, I'm taking my proverbial cash, throwing it at Kiffin and saying, whatever you need. One more thought I want to get to here before we give our unsolicited advice to Lane Kiffin as to what he should do. We keep going back to the documentary because it was so revealing, and you don't really get much from Lane Kiffin in press conferences. He doesn't do really any one-on-one interviews. Trust me, we've tried. He said something in the documentary that I thought was revealing, where he was speaking to how he used to approach coaching and his ambitions, and he kept saying, I want a statue. I want to be the youngest to do this, that, and the other. And he's since backed off that a little bit. But if you want to get a statue in front of the stadium, there's two places. One is Florida. You want to bring that place back to where it's been and go win a national title. You're at, I think, statue territory. Are you not already in statue territory at Ole Miss? You're going to make the playoff this year. Is that not already like somewhat flirting with statue territory? I think it is, personally. And I think if that still matters to him, the Ole Miss angle is intriguing. So, Cato, for my money, I wouldn't try to be happier than happy. I'd say give me what I need here at Ole Miss. And if you're going, assuming you do that now, if you're Ole Miss, if you're smart about it, you give Lane Kiffin what he needs. He's earned it. And say, we're winning right now. Why would I leave? We're beating these teams that we're going to end up having to play down the stretch here. With Florida at least being one of those teams, if LSU played Ole Miss tomorrow, Ole Miss probably be a double-digit point favorite given what's going on there in Baton Rouge. Ole Miss is rolling, and it's because Kiffin's built it, and I don't think there's any reason to leave at this point in time. Outside of wanting to go put your daughter's boyfriend in Win Weeks through conditioning and just make him have a difficult life in general during fall camp, outside of that, I would just make sure I give him a difficult time in general on the field, and Ole Miss keep rolling with Kiffin. I keep saying LSU and Ole Miss if they were to play here in the future. Ole Miss already beat LSU this year. Just to have that on record. So it is what it is. What are you doing if you're Lane Kiffin, Cato? What's the final decision here for you between these three options? To be clear, I want your decision to be Lane's decision. I think it'd be really cool if he stayed at Ole Miss. I think the success of this season is going to have a lot to do with it. But at the same time, they're successful with a D2 backup quarterback right now. So you can still argue that they're still not even scratching the surface of what they could be if Lane stays. I think it'd be cool if all of these SEC vacancies had to be filled by someone else, and they have to take the belt from Lane. Like he has his territory. He has the head start and the jump on all these schools. If I was Lane, though, as appealing as the food and the cuisine is in Louisiana, I think I would take my talents to Florida, man. I think that I'm not going to say you've done all you could at Ole Miss, but you're starting to get closer to that ceiling. And I think that if you go to Florida with the infrastructure within that state, I think with the quarterback position and the attractiveness of getting some of just the best talent you could, I think Florida, if I'm a Lane Kiffin and I'm thinking about my offense and how I want to build that up and how I want to operate and do what I'm doing at Ole Miss at a larger scale, I think it's the best fit. And I would go to the Swamp. I think just the resources in your backyard as far as players, the resources in providing for a program that's hungry for it. I think LSU almost having their national title a little bit more recently, if I'm in the mindset of a Lane Kiffin, I would like to bring Florida back. I think making Ole Miss your own thing, lifting that up, reaching the ceiling of that probably this year. If they win any postseason games, I think I've almost maxed out the potential of Ole Miss. If I'm Lane, I'm going to Florida, and I'm going to try to bring a old program that has been in previous glory, bring them back. I think that's statue material for sure if you can do that. It'd be wild, dude. To arm him with the brand power and the resources of the team in the most talent-rich state from a high school recruiting perspective, and the conference with the most draft picks would be dangerous. Either way, it's going to be a phenomenal story regardless, but either one of those I think I'm very okay with happening, and cannot wait to see how it unfolds. Cato, good stuff as always, man.
Sidebar, I'm hiring
Please.
Tim Tebow as well if I'm Lane Kiffin. That's one of my first orders of business. I know I had the celebrity head coach theory, and I said Tim Tebow will be the head coach of Florida one day. If Lane comes in, bring Tim in there, man. Have Tim in people's living rooms recruiting. Have him speak before the team, before a game, and fire them up. Like I think everything Lane does, down to his Twitter, down to his offense, every detail, I think just would work even more at Florida. Like I think it would just supercharge what he's got going on, and that's why it's my pick. So those are my parting words.
Turn it up. Lane Kiffin, head coach. Team chaplain, potentially.
Tim Tebow. General manager, Tim Tebow. You can't rule anything out, man, with Lane. I think the Lane train going to Gainesville would be quite electric, and that's what I would do if I was Lane.
Here we go, man. Here we go. Coach Kiffin, you have our input here. Feel free to use it as you see fit. But regardless, like we said before, dude is getting paid some big bucks. Now, right now, Lane Kiffin is not the head coach at Florida. They'll be rolling with Billy Gonzalez as the interim head coach. When they play Georgia in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Georgia minus 7.5, 3:30 Eastern, ABC. Florida, that pressure bubble already burst. I wonder a little bit how the psyche is for that team in the locker room. Because for the last, year and a half, on and off, it's been, is Billy Napier going to get fired? Is this the week? Is this the game? And as much as that probably was a energy source for that team and gave them a little bit of an edge to play for their head coach, I have to think at a certain point, too, that weight gets heavy when you're talking about your head coach's job being on the line. It feels like every other month, if not every other week. That pressure bubble has burst. And we've seen it now across college football. Head coach gets fired. Team ends up playing pretty well the next week. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think some of that is the ability to then play free, play a little bit more reckless abandon, throw caution to the wind. That's how I want my team feeling if I'm Florida and Billy Gonzalez when we got Georgia in Jacksonville. Now, if I'm Georgia, here's the reality. You are a better football team than Florida. Record indicates that. I think talent still indicates that. Are you going to play like it? Because Georgia's had a couple of different games where they haven't shown up till like second quarter. I don't know if the bus is late. I don't know if the flight got I don't know what it is. But Georgia has, for whatever reason, seemed to show up either in the second half or in the second quarter or whatever it ends up looking like. Florida is going to have a lead at some point in this game. What's the score when they have that lead and when Georgia decides to actually show up for the game? Now, if you're Georgia, you're saying, hey, maybe this is the game where we show up at the start of things, and that would be very nice. That'd be a welcome sight for Kirby Smart and his football team, especially in the month of November. But given the history of what Georgia's done to this point in the year, I'm going to go ahead and assume that at some point in time, Florida will have a lead, and it probably will have something to do with a one Dallas Wilson on the perimeter, who is a psychopath at receiver, came on big in the Texas game when he was healthy, over 100 yards in that game. Him and DJ Lagway, I think, are licking their chops looking at this Georgia secondary. 81st in college football in pass yards allowed per game. Florida has the weaponry on the perimeter and the quarterback from a talent perspective to take advantage of that. So I go back to this point I just made. Florida at some point in time will have a lead. Is that Florida scores on their first drive and it's 7-0 and Georgia wakes up? Is it, hey, end of the first quarter, 13-0, Florida's rolling and Georgia's got to find a way to get back on the right side of things in that second quarter and they start playing well? My question is, not just will they have a lead, but like, how is Georgia able to overcome that? Because as good as Ole Miss is, as good as Tennessee is, Florida actually has, I think, the best combo of offensive talent and gritty defense that Georgia has seen if they get down. Like, you're down 10-0 against Auburn. You're not really all that worried, unfortunately, about Jackson Arnold in that spot, pouring it on and stretching this lead to 30+. The game against Ole Miss, you were down 9, but that Ole Miss defense had no answer for you in the second half, and so that wasn't the issue. You shut out Alabama completely in the second half, but why was that the issue? Because Alabama has the best combo of those two things I just spoke to. Florida the second best. I don't like the idea of Georgia having to play from behind against that Florida defense. As bad as it's been at Florida this year, that defense can give you some issues, and I don't like the idea of them being able to protect the lead. So Georgia, we got to start quick. We can't start this game in the third quarter. You got to show up from the jump and bring a little bit extra juice. Now, if you're a Georgia fan, you're saying, JD, spot them 20. We don't really care. We play from behind. It's pretty much how we live life. We're the cardiac canines out here in Athens. That's fine. I understand that. And you honestly have a point. I don't have any evidence to throw out at you and saying starting slow is going to cause you to lose this football game. Again, outside of Alabama. And Florida's not Alabama, just for the record. But this game, to me, just by nature of all the ingredients around it. Rivalry game, both teams off a bye week. Florida's front seven's pretty solid. The offensive, I think, maybe mystery that Florida's working with here, with Billy Napier no longer being your play caller here in the spot. This game to me screams gritty, screams a touch weird, and when it's gritty and weird and things kind of wash out across the board at different points throughout a game, it goes back to your quarterback play. I think Gunnar Stockton has the offensive generator kind of game in this spot. I don't know how it's going to look. I can't give you anything super detailed as to what it's going to be for him from a production standpoint, but I think whatever you need for Georgia offensively in this game, Gunnar Stockton will have it. 3rd and 4, quarterback design run game, I think Gunnar Stockton has that for you. Got to have it spot. Play breaks down, that Florida front seven's getting after you. I think Gunnar Stockton ad-lib game, he has it for you. I also think that in this spot, too, we have to pay attention a little bit to the discipline of the Florida defense. It may not be a 4-quarter issue, but I think especially late, I wonder what the lack of head coach for Florida will amount to defensively in this game. And Mike Bobo, if you're just a touch undisciplined, that's where he gets you with the screen and go game, with the perimeter run game. I know Georgia fans have had their fair share of gripes with Mike Bobo, but he's got some sleight of hand up his sleeve, and he's got that amplified, I think, by the mobility of a one Gunnar Stockton. So I think that shows up here in some key moments, especially in the second half. And that's kind of what it comes down to for Georgia, really every week, but especially in this game. I think Georgia is going to have the ability to wear down Florida. It may not be a bunch of gash run plays from the jump. It may not be 150 yards rushing in the first half. But I think as the game goes on, we'll see it be within a score, I think, for both sides, at least in the third quarter. But when you get to that fourth quarter, that's where Georgia goes in for the kill. And for Florida, I wonder a little bit where their will is at in the fourth quarter. And I'm not questioning the character of Florida because we've seen them now. They played until the final game for Billy Napier. They sent my guy out, Billy Napier, on a win against Mississippi State. They played for that dude till the very last whistle. But now he's no longer there. Now you've had a full week to, let's just be real about this whole thing, have back channel communication from other football teams, from other agents saying, hey, I know your head coach left. What do you think about playing at our school? I wonder a little bit how much desire there is in the fourth quarter to go tackle McCray, to go tackle Frazier, to go tackle Gunnar Stockton and be up against that offensive line. We've already been at it for 3 quarters. I don't love that picture mentally, just keep it about with y'all. So with that being the case, I think that the deep water still is Florida's kryptonite here. I think Georgia in this fourth quarter will be able to find a way to take the game. I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia covers. Spoke out of turn there. I think Georgia wins. I think Florida covers. Final score, 27-20. So remember, this line, 7.5 now, favoring the Dogs. I think Georgia wins, but by 7, that half point, Vegas knows what they're doing. I think Florida covers that number if it stays at this number with it being 7.5. But I do think Georgia wins by a touchdown, and I think the fourth quarter traits once again show up for the Dogs in a rivalry spot, and they get it done in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Now, last game to break down here. We'll have some more predictions for you throughout the week. Miami, SMU tomorrow, so make sure you're tuned in for that one. Penn State at Ohio State. Ohio State, 20.5-point favorite at the crib. Big noon. Fox. This is awkward. This was not the game or the things going into this game we thought we'd be talking about for both sides when we sat here in the month of August and looked down the barrel of some of the biggest games in the Big Ten. But still, even with everything that's gone around Penn State and James Franklin being fired and just the disarray that's been around that program, it's still a really talented Penn State football team. I know you kind of roll your eyes and say, J.D. Drew Aller's not playing, and they lost to Iowa. I hear you. There's still a lot of guys that will play on Sundays on this Penn State football team. The reason why that matters, if you're Ohio State, you can't just roll the ball out there and expect to win. Now, you should expect to win with it being a 3-score favoring you and with what you've done to this point in the year and how Julian Saint's playing, but I'm just making sure we're all aligned here. Penn State is not rolling out there with the Jimmies and Joes of an FCS operation. They're still going to spot the ball. They're still going to play. They're still going to show up with some aggression. That secondary now for Penn State got some guys that can maybe give Julian Saint some issues. Is that the case? We'll see. Now for Penn State, just hear me clearly. I understand life sucks right now. It's bad. It's bad you lost to Iowa. Scored off a blocked field goal is one of the ways that you got in the end zone. It wasn't a great day offensively for you. This was not the year that you all signed up for before the season. This is not the year that I signed up for y'all before the season. I thought you'd be a playoff team along with everybody else. But here's the deal. As bad as it is right now, you know what will make it better? You go beat the defending national champs from last year, a team you haven't been able to beat for the last couple of years. Wouldn't that kind of flip this script a little bit for you? And I don't know if it saves the season, but I tell you what, when you go back through the slideshow of 2025, when those seniors play their last snap in State College, this would be a highlight reel moment. So you're kind of playing with house money here, nothing to lose. Maybe that makes Penn State a touch more dangerous. And with the line being what it is, let's not beat around the bush here. It's going to take something extra from Penn State to win this football game. So what does that extra entail? Watching Penn State without Drew Aller, they've been a little bit more quarterback run centric, a little bit more read option, a little bit more sleight of hand. For Penn State to win, you have to do that effectively. You have to divide the Ohio State defense effectively in the run game. You got to stay positive. I'm not talking about emotionally. It's a good, competitive disposition to have, kind of positive thinking. But you got to run through arm tackles. You can't be living in a world where it's 3rd and 11 or wherever behind the sticks, period. Because as much as I appreciate the desire to push the football downfield for Penn State, it's probably not happening against this Ohio State defense, at least not without something on the ground for them to have to honor. So you got to find a way to get something from all parties involved running the football. Potluck style. Quarterback run game, traditional running back run game. Heck, I'll take some perimeter run game here to keep it a buck with you. Need to find a way to get something on the ground to stay ahead of the sticks. Ideally, keep that Ohio State offense on the sideline. Easier said than done, but that's what it's going to take, man. You want to have a 3-score upset, it's going to take something like that. In addition to that, you need to swing your sword when it comes to pushing the ball downfield when you do have something on the ground. And I would love explosive plays. I'd take that. But you know what? Can we just say the quiet part out loud? Davidson Igbinosun has not been great when it comes to not getting pass interference penalties. I would try that a few times. And if it's an interception or if it doesn't go your way, I don't know, you're a 3-touchdown dog on the road with your head coach already fired and your quarterback done for the season. Might as well roll the dice a little bit here and see if you can draw a pass interference penalty or two. JD, you're talking about drawing penalties as a game plan. I wouldn't be saying this if I hadn't seen it time and time again. Number one for Ohio State, be a little bit grabby. Good player, Sunday future, rangy corner, but I've seen a couple of times the lack of desire to look back at that football exists. 15 yards is 15 yards. I don't care how you get it. I try that a few times if I'm Penn State. Now, I think for Ohio State, I say all these things about Penn State, the ways they can beat you, the way they can make it interesting. Ohio State, you can end this thing early. You can. It's Halloween weekend out there in Columbus. It's a noon kick. You probably have plans after the game. You can start thinking about those plans in the third quarter if you make this thing definitively your game in the first half. Because Penn State, you just lost to Iowa. I've said that now a couple of times throughout this breakdown. I don't know where the overall competitive will is at for Penn State. If I'm a Penn State player and Ohio State jumps up 24-0 at half, are we really coming out guns blazing in that third quarter? Is there really a ton of belief, a ton of desire to go out there for another 2 quarters and run our face into Sonny Styles and go have to try to run the football against Arvell Reese and what that overall just Ohio State defense is doing? I don't know where the offense comes from for Penn State. Again, I'm trying to forecast pass interference penalties for Penn State to move the football. I don't know where that's coming from. Ohio State's allowing less than a touchdown a game. Y'all, that is ridiculous. That is stupid. So maybe the defense finds a way to get on the board for Penn State. That'd be one thing. Does Julian Sayin have the gutter ball game here? I suppose that possibility exists, but that dude to this point in the year is only continuing to ramp up and get better. I'd be shocked if we saw him trot out there against Penn State and throw 3 picks, which I think is probably the number you'd have to get if you're Penn State to win this football game. Now, here's all I needed to see from Penn State on tape to make me feel pretty good about Ohio State winning and covering this number. 4th and 4 against Iowa. Iowa trots out there in 0 coverage and is blitzing their quarterback. They weren't worried about Penn State at all pushing the ball downfield. So if I was doing that, the Ohio State secondary and Ohio State defense should feel more than comfortable doing whatever they want on the defensive side of the football. I think Ohio State wins. I think they cover. I think they grab the game early. I think it's boring in the fourth quarter. I hate this for Penn State. I hope they're able to hire the right coach and get back on the right side of things when it comes to the conversation in the college football world. Tough year for Penn State. Tough situation to walk into with an Ohio State team ramping up and playing some of their best football offensively right now. I didn't even mention the names Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Smith just yet. I'll say those out loud so they're in the prediction video. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate probably going to have a good game, I'd have to imagine, by nature of Ohio State ramping up their offensive approach and pushing the ball downfield. Ohio State wins, Ohio State covers, and vibes stay immaculate for Halloween weekend out there in Columbus. Wild time in 2025, man. We got coaches getting fired left and right. We got $50 million buyouts being sneezed at and coaches just being jobless after their third loss of the college football season. Coaches getting fired with winning records, y'all. How about that? It is what it is, man. Yesterday's price is not today's price. And the price today is winning football at the highest level when you're expected to and have the resources to. So we'll keep a pulse on all that throughout the rest of the week. More head coaching carousel for you as well on this program as we move on throughout week 10 of the college football season or leading up to it, that is. We appreciate you making the show what it is. Cato on the ones and twos and the microphone. Sweet cardigan this fall. We love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all.